State Education Building in Albany, New York, is one of the grandest buildings in our whole country. It's not the kind of place kids from my class normally get invited to.
Let's be free!
That's me. I'm Lynne Gotto, and I was the 2004 New York State Teacher of the Year. And those are my students. We call ourselves the T-Rexes.
So teachers have no doubt whatsoever, I know you don't, on the profound influence that you have on young people and students in this great state. And I mention that by way of introducing the Teacher of the Year, Lynne Gotto.
Our trip to Albany wasn't just about recognizing me as Teacher of the Year, although that was nice. It was really just another unique learning opportunity for my students. It is those kinds of real-life, team-building learning experiences that motivates the T-Rexes, and we seek them out every day. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Rochester, New York is a typical northeastern American city. The suburbs are mostly white and affluent, and the city is poor and primarily African American. This is Henry Hudson School number 28, located in the city school district where I've taught for 30 years. There are 22 T-Rexes. They've been my students for the last 3 years, and now we're entering our final semester together, the end of 4th grade. Most of the children in the class qualify for free lunch. That means their family's income is below the poverty line. This is our first day back in class from the winter break, and at the beginning of every semester, I introduce the kids to the upcoming curriculum. So we're going to start this unit called Structures. We're going to start with family structure. Structure of families.
It's another learning experience, family time.
We're all going to stay together as a family because we have become a family. Please make sure that you give the gift to your mom, your Kentucky mom. And then we're going to think about how the parts of trees are structured.
So this one, it gives more light and water.
And then we're going to look at the structure of geography.
Oh, my foot's on it! Texas! Oh!
There's London.
We're also going to take a look at homes. How homes are structured or built.
We got a nice Z's. His new house. His house looks like a new house.
The mobile home, the trailer. And this crazy interconnected structure that I've created for the kids reflects exactly how I'm going to weave the curriculum together. That's Joanne Larson, a University of Rochester professor who has conducted research in my classroom for the past 5 years.
If she's going to do a unit on geography or a unit on homes or the unit on structures, it's all connected to the unit prior and the unit coming up. They're investigating genuine problems that are all connected, that integrate math and science and social studies and art and music and travel.
Oh, la la, he cried. Starlings, a nest full of them. This morning we needed to get ourselves prepared for our upcoming video conference with our sister classroom in rural Kentucky. Both classes were reading the same book, Family Under the Bridge. What's a quilt? The book is about a homeless family eking out an existence in Paris, and it made for an interesting way to introduce two of our topics in the structures unit, the structures of homes and of families. You're a family, and families have to stick together. That's what Mama says. Okay, put your books in your bag. About 3 times a year, we walk the 1.5 miles to the nearest high school to hold a video conference with our Kentucky friends. That's Cisco, my student teacher for the semester. Good morning, Kentucky! We had read about a character wearing a beret, and one of my students commented that his grandmother wore one.
My name is Tyler.
He brought it in, and he said he was going to wear it to the conference. Obviously, the idea caught on.
How about if we start with your class doing one of their activities from Family Under the Bridge, and then we'll show you one of our projects.
Sounds good. One T-Rex suggested we create a sequencing game to bring.
Paul tries to get a job. They sang for money.
Armin brought the kids to the gypsy.
United States, 4 children.
All right. What comes after that in the story?
Armin became a working man in Paris.
Let's give him a hand. Very good job. Yay.
As part of the unit, the children designed and constructed model rooms for the homeless children in the story.
This is a blueprint. It's also a floor plan. And then it goes to the light bulb. And then here's the switch right here. And it turns back on.
The Kentucky class brought a Jeopardy game to test our memories of the story.
Places, 200.
Places for 200. Our mom first called the children names.
Darlings.
Oh, they made a baby buggy.
To have a face-to-face exchange with the class 5 states away is a very unique experience, both culturally and intellectually. But it also gives the kids a chance to access something most urban kids don't have access to.
If I was bigger, I'd find a new place for us to live. Please, please don't take us away.
Most elementary kids who use video conference, it's more of a connecting to an expert at a location and being lectured to. But in this case, they are the experts.
Our classroom was going to everybody in the class and asking them what did they like about Family Under the Bridge and what didn't they like
What
about
did
it.
most people like about Family Under the Bridge?
When Aaron finally got a job.
So you watch the meal because we're going to fold these up this afternoon and send them to you, and we want you to add to the graphs. Okay? Well, we cannot wait to come and see for ourselves just how much we are alike.
Bye from Courtney. Bye from Taylor.
Goodbye from James.
This conference was maybe more exciting than all the others,
Bye from David.
because the next time they would see each other would be at baggage claim at the airport in Kentucky.
I thought it would be appropriate this morning to take a moment of silence for the spaceship Columbia.
Yesterday, the Space Shuttle Columbia accident had happened and had really made an impact on the kids. So it became an obvious thing for us to talk about this morning. Real-life learning experiences are always the most valuable, whether we're discussing the implications of a big news story or dividing up a bag of cookies for snack.
How many? 15 in each row? So if there's 3 rows of 15, how many are in here?
35. We only got 6 more weeks.
So that means 23 kids get how many cookies?
Okay, 15.
How many 23s out of 45 can you get?
And in fact, it's why we actually need to know division. It's a meaningful math problem. Our electricity investigation that day also had a real application,
Take out your white instructions journal.
because they used the skills they learned here to wire the model homes they built when we were reading Family Under the Bridge.
You're going to have 2 lights and a motor. So you're going to have to figure out how to get all of that to work with the flick of one switch.
Oh, we got it. We got it. We got it. We got it to light.
So now you need to draw this in your journal. You need to show this in your journal, that how you got it to light.
That must be the switch.
Ah, that must be a kind of a switch. Exactly right. I think you're right. Rochester, really good question. She said, well, how does the battery get the energy?
Lynn puts all the desks in a rectangle, and she has a chair in that rectangle. And it communicates the team nature of her classroom.
Okay, I put a picture up on the board. Most of you, I'm sure, have seen or heard about very sad and tragic accident.
We started by talking about the shuttle tragedy as scientists.
It blew up because it started on fire.
Examining how structural failure led to the accident.
A little chip came off and it said it shouldn't affect the left wing.
That's what Dylan was saying. They suspect that that's what's going to happen, that was the problem. That's their theory. But they do not know for sure. You know, our school is named after Henry Hudson. Does
But
anybody know
then
who
I
Henry
tied in one of our unit topics, geography, because we'd been studying Henry Hudson's exploration of America, to make the link that both he and the astronauts were explorers.
So, any other thoughts?
He had a lot of thoughts. But by the end, we really ended up talking about human endeavor, about being willing to take risks, and about a few individuals sacrificing themselves for a larger community, in this case, the whole world.
I guess we need to be thankful that there are people who are willing to do that for us.
In our little community, Kylan had been continually putting his own interests ahead of the group, and so I removed his desk from the rectangle. If you're not a team player, you can't be on the team. I connected with a nursing home in our neighborhood and asked them if we could visit. And now we go once a month.
Crossing over Winton, we need 1 single line.
We walk each way, a mile each way, no matter what the weather, because we can't afford a bus.
She said that was the 6th one she lost today. Yes.
6 walks in one day?
No, this week.
One lady lost her wallet 6 times? She's got a problem.
I think the walk is an important part of our school day because we use it as a chance to have some downtime and just sort of chit-chat socially about our lives and who we are as people. It becomes a real bonding time for us.
That house is nice, look, Devin. Frog, swan. Nice house for a summer.
Look how nice Zayas' new house. His house looks like a new house. It looks beautiful. Oh, and the front door is nice, Zayas. You're doing the floor? And you're going to redo those steps?
Yeah.
Which is what started all of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a funny story about the steps in Zayas' house. Lynne made her home visit prior to school and noticed that the stairs were falling apart and told the mother to tell the landlord that the teacher was going to sue him if he didn't fix it. And lo and behold, a couple weeks later, everything's getting patched up. These are examples of how Lynne gets involved in the students' personal lives, that she cares about them, she cares about what they need, and makes sure on multiple levels that they can get what they need.
I can't wait to get in this nursing home.
T-Rex says you need to lower your voices back. Zakiyah, smile!
I wanted them to see that they can have some impact in their community, even though they're only 9 and 10 years old. On this day, we took pictures of the residents with ourselves, and then we made frames for the pictures so that they could keep them.
And we put little designs on them. You can see I put a star in the middle. Bye now.
I have the kids go to the nursing home not because of standards or content. It's about learning how to be a human being. A caring human being.
Oh, that's pretty. What's your name?
Zakiyah. Look at you. I don't care. You over here doing this.
Oh, I love this idea.
I don't know if new teachers will attempt community outreach activities because they're being held so accountable to test scores. They don't feel that they have time or that it's of any value.
Where do you belong to?
You gotta talk in her ear. She's really hard to hear.
School.
Thank you, dear. You're a nice bunch of kids. Beautiful.
Thank you.
India's Danny's here. She's going to go around. Everyone's going to give her a hug or a handshake if they're not into hugging. Everyone's going to give her a big hug.
It was a sad day when India left. We were all very sad. Whenever anybody enters or leaves the group, it's important because the group dynamics change. We become a different family.
I loved that India came in that very day she was moving, that it was one of the important things she had to do before she left forever, which is to come in and see her friends and her team members, if you will, and say goodbye and close out that part of her life.
Zakiyah was the most sad because she was new to the class this year and she had had a hard time making new friends. And now India was leaving her and she was losing her best friend. It was a sad day for her. I wanted the kids to understand that she was losing an important part of her life and that we needed to support her.
India was her very, very best and closest friend. And she's going to miss her terribly. Zakiyah. So we need to make sure that Zakiyah, since, her and India always hung together. So now you need to make sure that you include Zakiyah so she doesn't feel left out.
School officially begins at 9 a.m., but the kids start coming in at 8. They come in early, and then I can't get them to leave at the end of the day. In fact, Braisha wrote to the school superintendent requesting that the school day be extended.
You're trying to be persuasive. You're trying to persuade him to come to the gym, to the rec center after school.
That's all I'm doing.
Well, don't erase it. I have nothing to say, and then you can go, oh, yes, I do.
The children start each day by getting right down to writing in their journals. It allows the children to work at their own level, and it's always a good idea to start the day on a positive note for each child.
Since you talked about praying, you want to tell what you mean?
Good morning, everyone.
And to the republic for which it stands.
Effort you've been showing throughout.
We tend to work right through the announcements. Journaling also allows me to have a short personal contact before we begin the instructional day. Yesterday, Licentra received a letter from India, but Zakiyah hadn't heard from her yet.
I wrote 2 letters from her so far. Wow, you drowsy.
Kylan was ready to rejoin the rectangle. Today, I'm introducing our geometry topic.
Now in geometry, we have two kinds of shapes. Two-dimensional, back and front, but no sides. 2D.
One-dimensional.
Or maybe one-dimensional. Actually, now that you say that, I'm not sure what you did. And so then we gotta add one-dimensional.
All right.
I don't know which kid it was. Someone brought up one-dimensional, and that was really neat because that wasn't in my plan to do. And then someone asked later on the question, is there a fourth dimension? And kids' questions often are the meat of the lesson.
And I was thinking about this story, Molly's Pilgrim, that we started last week.
I read aloud to the children many times throughout each day.
I was thinking about a text-to-text connection. I was thinking about this family in the story and the family under the bridge that we're reading.
Every read aloud has a curricular purpose or connection.
Both of these two families come from two very different cultures. And how in this book, we started keeping a list of French words that are used in the book, and how in this book, there have been some Yiddish words in this book. Right. So I thought we would maybe keep a list of the Yiddish words that we've heard in this book, too. Anybody remember any of the Yiddish words?
Tushy.
Oh, tushy. Someone remember the word tushy?
Tushy.
Miss Stickley, I said? I don't know that word. Thanksgiving, she announced, tossing her long black corkscrew curls. I guess you people don't celebrate American holidays.
That's rude.
What was rude?
You
Read aloud time is a talking time.
Yiddish. One word, probably, that comes to mind why that person doesn't have a lot of friends.
Oh, I know.
That has to do with Molly. So I heard someone say selfish.
The kids don't have to raise their hands for questions, but David has a hard time putting his down.
What's the reason that Molly doesn't have friends?
They can't speak English good.
People are talking about skin color, they don't speak English, but then I heard the word that sort of categorizes all of those things. Dave, I think you said it. What is it? She's different.
I think the teacher thinks the same way as the kids think about the girl. I don't think that.
Molly? Hang on, why do you think so?
Because she's not standing up for the little child, for the girls, so she probably doesn't care. Yeah, I think so too.
I think so. This is a piece that's called On-Demand Writing. You're going to tell about a time someone made fun of you.
On-demand writing also doubles as my preparation for the upcoming state testing.
Read each question carefully.
Since the No Child Left Behind Act has been implemented, test scores have become high stakes. Not only are students being judged, but also teachers and the schools.
At this time, I want to say hello and welcome to the 29th Annual Parent Conference.
The parents in my school district want to see the achievement gap narrowed, and so do I, but not at the expense of real learning. And that's what's happening in classrooms across the United States. There's been a lot of resistance to high-stakes testing. That's me at the annual American Educational Research Association conference.
Medicine and agriculture are said to work in ways that educational research does not work.
Joanne and I go there together to share my classroom practices with researchers and teachers from around the world. And here's what they had to say about the problems with standardized testing.
Those individuals who our legislation says will not be left behind are in fact being left farther and farther behind.
We're trying to ask the question of what kind of education do these kids need for 2010, 2020? What do they need to become new citizens in information economies and so forth?
There's an assumption that I think a lot of the people who support No Child Left Behind law make, and that is if we just get those basics in place, we teach kids to decode correctly and fluently, and we teach them to do literal interpretation, that they will automatically, when confronted with complex language in the content areas, whether it's second grade, fourth grade, or high school, succeed. That's simply false, and we've known it's false for 25 years.
It's really not giving teachers credit for the intellectual training and emotional training, because teaching children to read and write and to be contributors to a democratic society entails more than following a lesson plan.
And this is how I hold myself accountable.
Hi, hi, hi! Come on in, your kid is here somewhere.
Every semester, I ask the parents to come in to hear the stories their children have been working on.
Kids have become amazing writers. I don't know if you've noticed it at home, but they have become phenomenal writers. Just give them a little bit of your time so that they can share and read to you and have a real audience for their writing. Raisha's become such a poet. She's joined the Poetry Writing Club on Wednesdays after school.
Friends stick together, righteous all the time, intelligent to help me, excellent, good, nice and kind. Needs to stick with me and don't start trouble. Does a good job, sincerely all the time.
Who says fourth graders can't have deep feelings?
It was very fun, and I love my family. David gets lost. David gets lost in the park. David gets lost in the store. The time I got my ears pierced.
Kylan. And this is fitting following right after Albert because Kylan wrote about Albert.
Albert is a true friend. He helps me in a lot of stuff, like reading and spelling. He also is my best friend because he never picks on me. He's like a brother I never had, and that's true.
Kylan certainly wrote one of the sweeter stories, but he was starting to be a disruptive force in the class again.
A road trip. One day I was driving on a dusty road with my best friends, Brian and Zakiyah.
Alyssa had thought to include Zakiyah in her story, but Zakiyah and her family didn't make it that night. I was getting worried about her.
Remember the last time you came here and heard your child read a story, you can see some major growth.
I also had to talk to the parents about the Kentucky trip.
If in the event of some, God forbid, a missile flying through the air.
The National Security Code had been raised because of Operation Iraqi Freedom.
Although I just flew out of the airport and I didn't see any big difference.
And our school district was requiring additional clearance for all pending field trips.
Questions, comments, concerns? No one's concerned? What are you concerned about? Well, I want to hear your concerns. We all want to hear your concerns.
Yeah, well, with the principal and the superintendent, because I have reservations about her going too because of all the stuff going on.
Right. I feel like, yes, there is a risk, but I think you all know I'm going to take, your children are my children, and I'm going to make sure everyone's as safe as they can be. And I would put their lives before mine. So that's all I can guarantee you. I can't guarantee you that nothing's going to happen. I'm not God. Kylan, start pouring drinks.
But what's most important about Parent Night is that it strengthens our classroom community.
Yes, I will.
Our project at Ellison Park was actually its own curriculum unit, which had begun back in 3rd grade, but it also fit nicely into our unit on structures. The kids had become inspired to study trees by reading biographies of botanists. Each child adopted their own tree, which we visited each season. I always rent the same lodge with a big kitchen and a fireplace. Kids love going to the park. We go for the whole day and spend most of our time outside.
First of all, I'm seeing some people just running like this is a race. Hiking is is watching, being out in nature, not running across something to get it done.
Taking time.
Finding animals. Time. Right. Absorbing animals. A whole bunch of you missed the frog that Angela found.
I guess school recess has made being outside synonymous with taking time out from learning. But I think when we're having fun, we're learning the most.
Or it could be I don't know. Oh! Very cool. All right, you hold on to that in your back pocket. When we get back to school, we got to have someone look at that. We got to take that to the expert.
The Ellison Park Project, for me, is a credible example of how to integrate curriculum in a meaningful, authentic experience over time. So you're bringing together literacy by starting with biographies of botanists, botany, biology, art, math, science, reading, writing, observation, thinking, as scientists, as readers, as writers, as authors, as artists.
Okay, this is our plan for today, the agenda, which is a plan.
Inside, I asked the kids what questions they wanted to investigate. I put all of their individual questions on one chart, and then they became learning focused for the entire group.
What kinds of things are you going to look for in your tree today? Oh, wow. Ooh, there's a good one. Marina said, did the bark color change? Does the leaf from the fall match the leaves on the tree?
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
When kids work together to build knowledge, their education becomes the foundation of their relationships. This makes education fundamentally important to them, and that's why I spend so much time building community in my class.
Discuss with people what you've got in your book.
Everyone got a hardcover journal, and in them they answered the questions we had developed and charted the changes to their trees over the course of the year. Whenever I take a field trip, I try and get as much support as I can.
Kylan. Mr. Vasquez is going to just walk back and forth and help
The kids learned a tremendous amount about trees and plants and fertilization and pollination and fungus and about mapping and about being a scientist. All right, so when you go inside with colored pencil, you can use the black to show that that's black, but you want to draw what it looks like around it. All right. Do you know what those are? What do you think they would be? I don't tell children the answers. I want them to figure it out.
Oh, little leaves about to grow.
Ah, little leaves about to grow. All right, so I think you should write that down and say that's what you think they are. This is, so you've got a tree that you can see, look, it's really, really smooth here, and it's really, really rough here. So you've got a tree that has peeling bark on it, don't you? Look, you've even got that falling off branch down there. That's really good. The back leaves are brown.
Dry ones, this one, it give more light and water, and these ones, they in the back, so they dry.
All right, so now this is stuff you need to put into your journal. This is important stuff.
I'm hearing some people talking about what they think is going to turn into leaves. And what were those called? Zakiyah.
I always integrate vocabulary lessons through the context of use. Again, this is real-life learning.
Twigs or branches, they're not sticks.
The green stuff is lichen. It's a fungus. What? This green stuff.
Oh, I've absolutely made urban tree huggers. There's no doubt about it.
We will return with more students first, right after these messages. Stay tuned.